Everybody's looking for a government or a political solution to what's going on up there in Ohio. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes and explain to you why that's not the way to go. Let's start with Vietnam. Between the years of 1961 and 1971, the U.S. government dropped 13 million gallons of a dioxin called Agent Orange all over Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Dioxin, where have you heard that word recently? And millions more died since returning, but nobody ever talks about those numbers. And what did they die from? Well, it took forever and a day for the U.S. government to finally admit, after years of fighting, that it was a result of Agent Orange poisoning, which they knew since the 1950s was going to create the fallout that it did. Now that's 58,000 Americans, and then who knows how many hundreds of thousands or millions more that died when they got home. How about the people in Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam? Nobody ever talks about how many of those have died and keep dying as a result of it. But then nobody's worried about the soldiers anyway. Remember what Kissinger said? Military men are big, stupid animals that should be used as tools for foreign policy. Agent Orange was developed by Monsanto. Does that name ring a bell? Because it should. You think about all that genetically modified organisms and seeds that we're eating today, well, where did they come from? The same people that brought you Agent Orange. How about that? First they create a poison, and now they make the food. Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I'm sure they fortified it with 19 vitamins and minerals. 1989, Exxon Valdez. 10 million gallons were dumped into Prince William Sound up there in Alaska. Now, they blamed it on the captain at first. He was later on exonerated, but you never hear about that. They blamed it on the captain, said he was down there sleeping it off, that he got topped off true sailor style, getting drunk below deck. Meanwhile, all this happens. What we find out later on is that the radar was busted on this vessel a year prior to that, and everybody knew about it, especially at Exxon. They used a surfactant or solvent known as Corexit. Now, it's known to cause kidney, liver, lung, nervous system damage. That would call, in my world, the whole body, but they used it anyway. And what it did to the wildlife up there and the surrounding areas was probably almost certainly more devastating than the actual oil spill. In the end, they cleaned up about 10% of the oil, but they managed to miraculously cover up 100% of the crime. Iraq wars, and we're talking between 90 and 91, and then later on from 2003 to officially 2011. 100 million gallons of oil were dumped into the aquifers over there, and there's some debate as to whom was responsible for that. Additionally, over 200 million tons of depleted uranium from our weapons of warfare were also dumped into the aquifers. We have cancers, birth defects, and other dreadful and ghastly diseases that are off the charts from that time until this day. But nobody's talking about it. I've often thought about Scipio in the Third Punic War and how he was charged to dump salt over the fields of Carthage, and how to this day nothing grows. What if he had depleted uranium at that time? Many of us have already forgotten about the BP oil spill. Remember that happened back in 2010. Over 200 million gallons of oil were dumped into the Gulf of Mexico. And the only reason it happened is because this merger between corporation and government let them cut the corners that made that happen in the first place. But once again, what was used? That same thing that was used during the Exxon Valdez, that Corexit, was once again not only used above the surface, but also below. So it took that oil, sank it to the bottom, and to this day, well, at the time, it infected the plankton, which means that it has been bioaccumulated all the way up the food chain to this day, and nobody's even talking about it. Remember Fukushima back in 2011? Because most people don't. Nobody in the media talks about it anymore. An earthquake might have started it, but incompetence, obfuscation, and downright lies have exacerbated it. Supposedly there's an ice wall containing all this, but they are admitting from time to time that they are dumping millions and millions of gallons into the Pacific every single day. Do you think that has an effect on the planet? I'm a farmer, so I kind of need one. Think about the commonalities in everything I've cited so far. You have this unholy alliance between government and corporation in every single case. Some people would call that fascism. Now, why on earth would you entertain solutions or advice from pathological and profligate liars? Nobody with any sense would. So, let's talk about solutions, and they are very, very simple. Grow your food, build a reliable community, and prepare. All right, you need anything from us, check it out down below. This is Billy from Permapastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion. We'll see y'all next time.